Mongraal and MrSavage are two legends of Fortnite competitive. Ever since Epic unrestricted the age requirement for tournaments, these guys have been winning events. Starting back in Chapter 1 during 2019, where they both managed to double qualify for the solo and the duo World Cup, these guys have been constantly performing at the top of leaderboards. And the craziest part about these two as players is despite having massive breaks, so they've not been grinding Fortnite, they haven't been taking it too serious, Mongraal even quitting the game completely and going ahead and just doing something else for a couple of years of his life. They are back during Chapter 6, approaching 2025, and they're still at the top of the leaderboard.
First place! Let's f***ing go! Look at that f***ing mattress, bro. Holy bro, we're f***ing crazy. Holy fuck.
So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down everything that these guys did to win the very first tournament of Chapter 6 and also be the first players to earn in Chapter 6 as well in the entire world. I'm breaking down their early game, mid game, how they fight, all of their strategies involving Surge, as well as how they take height and play mid ground during end games. I think will be massively useful for you guys. And also, I'll be doing a full breakdown on their brand new third player, Panza. And this guy, Panza, is so underrated. If you haven't heard of him, I'll be doing a full explanation of everything that he does. And he basically acts as the glue that holds this trio together, allows them to perform to their absolute best. And also, just as a bonus, because I used to coach both of these players back when I was on FaZe, I will be doing a full breakdown of a bunch of their mistakes that need to fix. 3 very big mistakes that you guys are probably making in trios that will help you get better. So let's get straight into this with their off-spawn. For Mongraal, MrSavage and Panza drop, these guys are landing at the bird. And as you can see, they're able to win this initial off-spawn 50-50, but there's still another team nearby. So how do they actually outdrop this other team? And it's not due to having a better drop map, because of course, at the pro level, pretty much every single team is using a very similar drop map. It's actually all due to when these teams decided to jump out the bus. One important thing to remember is that staying in the bus is way faster and way more efficient than jumping out the bus early. So you need to have the correct angle for when you jump out the bus to hit your marker. And that angle is normally going to be around 60 degrees. As you can see right here, MrSavage, Mongraal and Panza all decided to jump out the bus a little bit later than Moneymaker's trio. And this means that when they actually hit the marker in a second here, after they glide in straight to it, and remember all these teams are doing the exact same marker. As you can see, there's a tiny little bit of a difference in terms of how far Moneymaker is behind. And that actually initially leads to this off-spawn fight being lost for him. As you can see, he's just about a second behind because he jumped out the bus at the wrong time, and that leads to his trio dying off spawn. And just like that, these guys have won the off-spawn and they're now on a 3v3 versus the team on the other side. So let's take a look at how they play out this off-spawn fight. Now, after winning this initial 50-50, how do these guys clean up the other team contesting them? And the first thing to remember is that the bird POI, there's a slurp truck straight in the middle. And it's normally very risky to go for a slurp truck off spawn, but because these guys have got the initial siphoned mats from actually killing those players that contest them, they're safe to go for this and they can just cover their angles when they get sprayed. However, they don't push straight into the next fight. Instead, what they do is slow down for a second and refarm even more, which is super important. The entire time that MrSavage is scouting from up here and trying to get info for his team, Mongraal is swinging his pickaxe and farming up mats. Panza's doing the exact same thing. Just gaining mat advantage and getting as much loot and mats as possible is so key to winning off-spawn fights, as you can see right here. Both of these guys just swinging their pickaxe non-stop. Then, finally, MrSavage gives the comm to actually go over and push towards the other team after he gets this initial beam. So take a look at how he does this. The first thing he does is gets info before he goes, and he's going to set up a flank, which is super important. Trio fights are all about having a positioning advantage, and if the whole team on the other team is together and you get a flank on them, it is genuinely so strong. So watch how he does this. First thing he does is going fully around the left, and he's actually trying to get up to this hill right here, so he's got a height advantage on the other team as well. And then take a look at what Panza does. This is actually a really smart play by Panza. He goes over and he's basically acting like bait for MrSavage to get a beam. And remember, he's been swinging his pickaxe this whole time, so he's completely safe while doing this. All he has to do is spam a load of metal and basically rebox. And now MrSavage just got up to this hill. He gets a massive beam, another massive beam, 2 cracks on the enemy team, and this is basically a free fight from here on out. Panza plays time, doesn't risk fighting by himself, waits for MrSavage to come over, gets the opening knock, and now these guys have an easy job of cleaning out the other team, just like this, and they're able to take out all 3 other players very quickly with no third parties nearby. One thing that most impressed me from watching these guys as a brand new trio is just how good their fighting is already, and basically just playing as a trio correctly during a fight. And one thing that is super important to learn is how important split angles are. If you guys don't know what split angles are, basically just having a flank, having somebody a different wall that they're shooting, so you're always able to get damage on an opponent even when they're boxed up. So right here, Mongraal and MrSavage 3-2-1 this player, and they get him cracked. This is obviously the guy they're trying to kill because he's just cracked. What Mongraal does very smartly is he shoots away the enemies, so the guy's support teammates who are going to come over and try to help build for him. As you can see, he's shooting away this guy, trying to stop him, force him to build. And while they're doing this, Panza very smartly has got himself on a split angle, and he's built up on a split angle, nice little right hand peak of the hill right here, and he's just spraying through with a different angle. And this is how these guys are able to get the opening knock of the fight. As you can see, other player thinks he's safe because he thinks the enemies are over here. He's able to get that spray through and get that opening kill. Now let's take a look at how Panza approaches this fight. First thing, guys, do not pickaxe in trios, and also do not approach on a wall if you're like the first one approaching the box. Always approach from above. What Panza does is he gets the control of the top with a cone, holds his shotgun out, and then take a look at this whole fight. It's actually really smart. First thing he does is pre-fire to bait out the opponent, thinking the guy's going to run forward. Baits out the pre-fire, does not pickaxe once. Instead, he swings completely behind an archer there. Also sets up this nice little escape wall, which, you know, Mongraal can use to help get towards him, so he's not going to get pieced up. He always has an escape option. Then he uses the shotgun to replace. And this is one really crucial thing about fighting this season, is this pump shotgun, which all of these three guys have, has crazy structure damage. So you should never really be pickaxing. You should always be pump replacing. It's a lot harder for your enemy to predict. And this guy right here gets caught off guard, doesn't have his builds out in time when Panza takes the floor. Then what Panza does is swings behind the peak. He's not just trading straight away. He's not standing in the open. He swings behind the peak, and this is absolutely beautiful. He does a little jiggle peek. You guys don't know what jiggle peek is? Basically, swing and then swing back, baits out your opponent right here, thinks Panza's going to peek, and he baits him out. And now, look, Mongraal's got with him perfect synergy. They're both peeking the same angle at the same time. And of course, they're going to commit forward. Panza starts smacking, doesn't overcommit, just walking forward with this AR out like Mongraal is. Instead, what he does is tracks the opponent's footsteps and gets a free kill as the guy double edits down, just like that. And now, they're going to get the third of the player. MrSavage plays nice and slow, doesn't risk dying in a 1v1. He waits for his teammates to come over. Only now does he shoot back as his teammates come over towards him to help take out the other player. And these guys are able to wipe that trio in about 15 seconds of the fight starting. Really good fighting fundamentals from these guys so far. Let me know if you want to see more fighting videos on trios on this channel down in the comments. One really useful strat that you can do is just by setting your orb TP point somewhere and then going ahead and doing whatever you want to do in complete safety. So in this case, Panza wants to refarm this rock, get his mats up a little bit. It's a little 150 extra brick, and he's able to do it completely safe without risking dying, and he's able to go ahead and save mats without having to build back up. Really useful strat that you guys can do whenever you're in an endgame situation. Also, on a separate note, these guys do a very nice play here on this 8-zone rotate, which is realizing where the moving zone is pulling onto the Rift Island right here, the new Rift Island, and they decide to invest their orbs early and actually get up onto the island and play for height from this zone on out. As you can see, triple orb up and then fly, and now they've got height and they can hold this for the rest of the game as long as nobody can test them. MrSavage also does the exact same strat later on. Upon these guys getting a refresh right here, what he does is throws down his orb teleport back in the tarp, and now he can very safely jump back down, get all of the materials from this player, and then teleport into the complete safety of his teammate's box. One of the most important strats that you need to learn if you want to get better at trios is understanding how to use dead side correctly. I see so many people doing this wrong. They put themselves in dead side and they're below surge, or they're just not the best spot possible. They're not using it to its full potential. So let's watch how these guys do it. So if you guys don't know what dead side of zone is, it's most important during the partial zones right here. So where it's half out, that is going to be the dead side. That is where you want to end up. So let's watch how these guys do it. First thing they do is they use triple TP, or the Oni mask, and they go ahead and teleport over. They send all three teleports over, but very smartly, as usual, Mr. Tunj IQ, he doesn't teleport with his teammates. He knows that other teams are going to shoot the orbs as they drop. So watch what he does. He stays back, just gets a little bit of tags, stops his teammates getting focused. Really smart play, and then he TPs over. Now these guys are going to go ahead and hold the edge of zone. So what they're doing is, rather than just going instantly into dead side, they're going to hold other teams and prevent these other teams from getting behind them, so they have control. And the main reason why dead side is so important, as you can see Panza goes into it right here, is it allows you freedom. It allows him to cap up his mats. He's not going to get looked at by anybody, and he's going to be in the best position possible in a second. So you can see he's going to farm up all his mats, get cap brick, cap wood, even be able to farm extra mats for his teammates as well, which is super nice. And of course, they get zone pull down to the south here as well. Even if they don't pull zone here, just being in dead side is so much better to rotate from, so much easier to rotate instantly for next. Because of how strong dead side is, it's really important you guys think about playing for it at all points in time, which is exactly what MrSavage does right here. He realizes that where dead side and where zone is expanding to is actually old build up a hill right here. As you can see, it's a lot of elevation. It would actually be a really good idea to go there early. So what he does is so smart. He comms for his teammates to throw their orbs over before zone even pulls. Just on the off chance that zone pulls down to the south, they can potentially play from height. So if it pulled anywhere south here, they could play for height from going early. That's what they do. They throw their orbs over. As soon as zone pulls, he's go, 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 go. They all go over at the exact same time. And because of that freedom from earlier, from being on dead side, refining the mats, look at how many mats they have here. It's a very easy mat investment to take height because of how many mats they have. They invest mats ahead going into the zone early, and now they're in such a good position. I look at this position they've got compared to everyone else in the lobby, just from doing dead side over and over, as well as having nice pre-rotates. It's basically impossible for another team to take height off of them. Panza also does a very good job of connecting and securing down at the bottom, so it's unlikely to get chopped, and then goes ahead and regroups with them up top. And now these guys are going to be in a really strong position to hold height right here. So how do these guys actually hold height throughout moving zones? And it is genuinely one of the best strategies that I've seen in a very long time, the way that these guys hold height. First thing is they just invest a little bit of mats backside, but they're not going to tarp the entirety of moving zone. First moving especially is way too long, it's way too big, there's way too many people in it. It's very likely you get chopped over and over. So what they do is just invest a little bit of mats at the start, and they're going to TP over. And they very crucially here wait for a good spot to TP. So MrSavage is scouting, maybe he could, you know, tank Storm up on that hill to claim height, but then another team ends up actually building a better spot for him to land that wasn't involved tanking Storm. So he's going to TP straight over there with Mongraal, as you can see. They both TP over. And again, Panza, absolutely goated player. I'm pretty sure, like, he's actually insane. He decides to stay back for a second, just getting more opening damage, preventing other people from dropping them out, just scouting, getting information from a different angle as usual. Now, these guys are going to go all three regroup on front side, but they don't just stop for a hit. Like, this might look like a good spot to stop and just play from height and spray your gun, but look what MrSavage does, which is actually really, really important. He invests even more mats getting further into the end of moving zone. So no matter where the next zone pulls, these guys are going to be in a good position to tarp from. So they're not going to be getting mirrored and getting flanked from underneath and chopped out from angles they can't see, which is super important. Also, a big thing with just doing plays like this where you invest extra mats is you have better angles to spray from. So you can actually shoot your gun, get a lot more damage onto other players, as well as get a lot more kills throughout the end game. Now, as you can see right here, these guys are again on the dead side of the zone, guys. Every single zone from the first zone up to final moving always has a dead side, and you need to know where that dead side is. So if again, just to recap, zone played from up north down to the south side, so where zone just pulled far from and pulled into, that is going to be the dead side again, and that is where MrSavage is going to tarp from. As you can see, he makes sure to stay as south as possible. He's doing single layers right here, so they have better angles to shoot, and also it's basically impossible for them to get flanked. Like, there's only really a couple shambles teams underneath them that are getting pressured by Mongraal right here. There's nobody that can flank them, there's nobody that can look up at them, because of course they have a long angle to shoot. They're not just shooting straight down where you can get easily blindsided, they're shooting horizontally down and getting a lot of damage at the exact same time. And as you can see, of course, Mongraal with a hit scan AR up on height is going to get a load of damage, and he also makes sure to throw down his TP several times up on height. One thing I think you guys should avoid if you're playing height is playing somebody ulti backside. Instead, just do little things like throwing down your TPs, making sure if you do get chopped, you can re-TP back up to your teammate, as well as making sure you have angles to shoot, which is so important. I just look at this dead side position they've got, allows them to shoot an insane amount, as well as for Mongraal to get a lot of kills here up on height, which is really important. Every single kill you get, even if you're not able to get the loot, is another trio that's down to a duo or another duo that's down to a solo. It makes it a lot easier for you to win the game. Now, as we get into final moving right here, this is actually where Mongraal, MrSavage, and Panza make their first major mistake of this tournament. This is something that I learned from doing a fighting coaching session with Bolts, who is insanely good at this, which is basically you need to force all the other teams in the lobby to fight, and you can't do this just by sitting and passively spraying from above. You have to get down, you have to start flanking in Storm, like getting behind people's tarps, taking double edits ahead of time on them. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, even though it looks like Panza's doing a little bit of going down and interrupting these other players, what's going to happen is there's going to be another team in the lobby, like Trap and Chicho in this case, or who actually ends up being is this other team down on low ground who has 3 medkits, who are just going to stall, they're going to play time, and they're going to play those 3 medkits at the end, and they're going to win the game. So what Bolts, Rapid, and Poyo do in their trio is actually have Rapid, who would be MrSavage's role in this case, would stay max distance up on height, ideally with some type of heal off, but not always, and he is basically just securing the placement by staying alive as long as possible. Then what Panza and Mongraal need to do in this situation right here is start being aggro on the other team. Start actually taking edits, taking doubles and things. Instead, they're just sitting really passively and scared up on height, afraid of actually getting on the walls of these other teams. And it's completely fine if they die in this situation here, because of course, MrSavage is max distance up on height, completely safe, no chance that he dies. As you can see, by the time that Panza and Mongraal actually finally drop down on height, they're not using their mats, they're not claiming space ahead of these other teams, and Panza makes a small mistake here, which is standing directly on the double edits of the other team, and of course he gets dropped down and goes down. He does hit a max as he does it, and now Mongraal's going to go down, and it's very tired. It's very hard for him to actually clutch the situation because he doesn't have anything in terms of mats that he can do. You need to be active going for those kills during endgame, especially when you've got your third player up on height staying alive. As you can see, as good as MrSavage is, there's no chance he can clutch this, even though he's able to knock 2 of these players right here, because the third one down on low ground has all the med kits, and he's going to get that guaranteed win.
Pressuring on double is really important too, because it allows teams to not even like be able to think about going for height. Like, this is really how you secure height. And then when you have another person like ulti, like making sure, like if you see like right here, like let's say like this guy edits out the left here and he ramps up and like tries to pump rapid, like I'm already looking at him. I'm already looking at him.
Yeah,
right? If he edits out, yeah, I'm just covering their backs, making sure nothing happens.
That's just a small preview of what you get inside the fighting masterclass, guys. As you can see, that's the brand new session that we just hosted with bolts. That's where you can get the full VOD of that. And that's just a small fix that Mongraal, MrSavage, and Panza will probably make over time, but you can learn all of these advanced strategies before you play any type of cup with the fighting masterclass. So definitely go check it out down below. If you want to get better at fighting, you want to become primed up in 2025, it is the best thing to buy. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other games from these guys and figure out exactly what they are doing correctly. And the first thing is I want everybody who's watching this video, who's an IGL, or if you're just a smart player and you think you've got good game sense, explain to me what you would do on this rotate right here. So you can see MrSavage is getting all this information. He's scouting out a lot, and I'll just go zone 3 so you can see a little bit easier. But they get an absolutely max distance zone, as you can see. And from their POV right here, they have very little information. They know there's some teams above them on this ridge right here. They know there's a very good team in front of them, as well as a bunch of other teams on the side of zone with them. And zone is going absolutely max. So I want you guys, especially for an IGL, especially if you think, you know, you're a really good in-game leader, comment down below what you would do in this situation. I want to see how many of you guys actually get this correct, because honestly, this is somewhat of a trick question. I'll pause the video for a second so you can write it down below, but let me explain what MrSavage does and why you guys need to be doing this on your rotates. The main issue with this rotate is that you don't have the information. So even though they're playing triple katana, they've got very good mobility, they don't have the information about how to rotate from down here in this position. So watch what MrSavage does. He goes early and pauses before zone even starts closing in. He goes nice and early and pauses as he comes up this hill, which is super important. Now, as you can see from being up on this hill early, they've got time to like hold where they get sprayed for a second. They're not going to get focused too badly. And the crucial thing is here, they have more information. Information in Fortnite is the #1 asset you have as a team and just as a player as well. Just having information is so crucial. Every time I get a coach to do a session in my Discord, they always talk about information. And the key thing is from down there where these guys were, you can't actually make a good choice. You don't have enough information. But from up here, they've realized this is a bad rotate. Going up top here is going to be very, very risky. So instead, what they decide to do, well, actually what Panza decides to do, is to lead the rotate, take these guys down underneath through all these old builds, and now they're going to go ahead and do a very nice job of coming into the edge of the zone on the side of the zone. I'm going to do a full explanation of why I think Panza is so good just in a couple minutes, but let's go ahead and watch how they actually ended up doing this rotate. As you can see, they've come towards the edge of the zone. They've avoided all of that congestion just from that little bit of information, and they're going to have a very easy time of actually getting into the end of the zone right here. Now, as we come into moving zones, one thing I want you guys to be aware of during moving zone is that it's actually not good to be completely front side. As you can see, Fredoxy, Trippin, and Thomas, obviously a very good team as well. They are completely front side, but the issue of that is they're going to have teams going in like a 360 around them. Every single one of their walls, as well as their tops and their bottoms, are a potential threat, which makes it very difficult for you to rotate because you have to be really aware of when you leave your box, and just getting predated as well. It's a lot more risky. So watch how Panza, Mongraal, and MrSavage actually rotate this game, and this is actually a really nice play. They just get themselves on the edge of zone, as you can see. They get themselves completely on edge. They have a really easy time of just following through. Nobody's even looking at them. They have a really easy time of rotating right here. And then Panza makes a really good call in this situation because he's the only one with the only mask. He comms, I'm going to get into zone first. I'm going to TP front side as soon as I can, and then you guys catch up to me with the blade. So as you can see, he TPs forward, tanks Storm again, which is really nice. Tanking Storm to make sure he's not as likely to get a shot as he lands. And now they're all able to regroup with the blade on him on front side. And then let's go ahead and watch Panza for the rest of this game. I watched this live on stream. I was so impressed with Panza. Like, genuinely, he was doing things a lot of tier 1 pro players do not do and do not, you know, consistently able to use when they're playing. And I was very, very impressed with his level of gameplay. First thing that he does very nicely is he's always calming and looking for refreshes actively in good situations. Like little drop down plays, he is always the one calming for them, looking for them. And even though these don't actually quite work out, he is always going ahead and doing them correctly. Next thing he does, as soon as zone swaps, he has that sort of muscle memory. As soon as he hears that zone klaxon, he is instantly building and getting them to a good spot, as you can see. Harping forward, layering up right here, absolutely perfect. Storm tanking front side, which is absolutely lovely, making sure everything is airtight. That small cone right there actually saves him in a second here. So prevents another team from claiming that space on them. And now these guys are in a really position. He's going to constantly look for more refreshes. Drop down play, these guys get 2 refreshes right here. And then this is absolutely beautiful in a second. Genuinely one of the best plays I've seen. As soon as they get the refresh, he's tarping. He's not faffing around getting loot, as you can see. He's going ahead, coming for another refresh play. They get the full box on Trippin right here, as you can see. And look at this. This is genuinely one of the most fundamental things in trios, but so many people don't do it. is getting tunnel visioned. They just got that kill. Look what Panza does. 180, check the back, block the back. Genuinely so important. That sort of muscle memory and just ability to know how to do that is really, really important in trios, and it's something I really want you guys to learn. And also, he's able to come back in time and hit the max onto Fedoxy and get these guys a massive refresh. Massive, literally double refresh right there, as well as continue the task. One of the best strats that MrSavage did quite a few times is actually just sacrificing his teammates to secure early placement for himself. So what he does is right here around top 10, he starts playing early whites. He gets his teammates to drop all of his whites, and very selfishly, he just sits back in zone right here, letting his teammates basically run forward and try to get some kills, or basically just try to die and secure himself placement. As you can see, Mongraal does a very good job of this. He's able to jump in box right here and take out Thomas, jumps in, gets the free kill, and then Panza as well does a very good job of just basically running around as a solo, disrupting other teams, making other people scuffed, and actually able to get a few more kills here. And the whole time that these guys are doing this and risking dying themselves, MrSavage is securing guaranteed placement, which is so important. Especially if you've ever got 3 medkits, you should never be dying in an endgame with those 3 medkits, which is what MrSavage is trying to do. Panza does a very good job, gets another kill right here, so that's an extra load of points. And now, when MrSavage is finally able to come in back in, because he's ran out of white, look, he's able to secure himself a top 3, which is a massive amount of bonus points, even though he dies as soon as he comes back in zone. Getting a top 3 there is absolutely huge. Now, the next mistake that these guys make isn't actually a massive mistake. It's basically 3 minor mistakes that they made in a row that led to one of them dying completely before endgame, which is Mongraal right here. The first thing that they've done wrong, in my opinion, is whenever you're in a permanent base like this, I would always recommend at least being mostly in metal. You shouldn't be in brick. It's too see-through. There's too many cracks in it that people can see where you are. It's a little bit risky to just be sitting in brick, especially when it's only 300 HP and how crazy the structure damage of ARs is at the moment, where people can just pre-edit you. The next mistake is they're not all in the same box, as you can see right here. Mongraal's above, he's slightly split, and again, being split in brick is so risky because, of course, other teams can pre-edit you. And the last mistake right here is just continuously spraying your gun non-stop without doing any awareness checks, without looking around, without looking at visual footsteps, without just scouting what's going on. He continuously just sprays his gun over and over without looking around, and of course, what's going to happen? A team's going to see that brick wall, they're going to hear shooting over and over, and they're going to come straight down with a pre-edit, and they're going to pre-edit Mongraal and take him out. And now it's up to MrSavage and Panza. No chance they can save Mongraal to try to clutch this game. Now, since Panza and MrSavage need to play out this game as a duo, they have a very hard time of finding refreshes. You can't just do a pre-edit and have the firepower of 3 people getting an instant kill. So instead, they have to resort to some old strategies to get some refreshes right here, and this is one of the best methods of getting a kill, which is the airport strat. As you can see, they're not able to find any kills, so what they do is decide to prioritize getting towards front side right here. They do a nice little orb TP forward, and now on the front side of zone, they go ahead and they claim loads of space, and not just space long, they claim space wide, if that makes sense. The Savage gets a free kill on somebody backside, that's a bit of opening damage, and while he's doing this, take a look what Panza is doing in a second here. He's going to go ahead and claim all of this space on the front side of zone, not just building a top into the end of zone, but going specifically very wide, so they have all of the edits on basically anybody that would end up down towards low ground. So basically anybody that came off this hill, anybody that came off these high layers, they would have all of the edits on them right here. And he also makes sure to seal off everything so they can't get jumped on as they do this. Another free kill right there. Now they've just got 2 back refreshes back to back. And of course, the main benefit of having loads of space down at low ground is whenever somebody dies on a mid ground layer, or they die while orbing or using a katana or something like that, you're going to go ahead and get all of the mats as well every single time, because it all ends up falling down to low ground. This is genuinely one of the best strats that you guys can do. Just going wide, building a 2x2, even like a 2x3 right here, and you'll get so many kills as long as you do it at the end of zone. One thing that Panza is really good at in this trio is just realizing that he can actually just completely call things on his own. You'll see an example of this a little bit later on when he's tarping, but in this game right here from their last game win, he actually did a really smart play, which is what MrSavage and Mongraal were backside holding rather than just boxing up in the end of zone. He realizes that height is completely free right here, and it's also a really good idea to go for height. It's 8th zone, it's about to be into moving, so height is obviously extremely strong, and they've got this massive mountain that's going to support them, and it does a really good job of just establishing this team up on height while his teammates are completely split. Like, they're both backside getting kills, and he's just gone ahead and fully taken height completely on his own and done a really good job with it. And he also makes sure to connect back zone in the mountain as well, so these guys are fully safe when they're up here. Doesn't matter if you're just not an IGL and you're a support player or a fragger, don't be afraid to call things on your own if you think it's the best play in that situation, and don't be afraid to execute them as well. Now let's go and take a look at another game just for some more really good examples of how good Panza is. First thing that he does is he is extremely good at just helping helping his teammates, which might sound a little bit basic, but he is genuinely insanely good at this. First thing he does, saves Mongraal's skin right here as he gets pre-edited and he gets knocked, throws him the whole way back, make sure to fully cover everything, double layers it as well, so it's harder for these other teams nearby to actually see the knocked body, as you guys can see right there, and is able to get the res off on Mongraal, keeping this trio up and running, which is genuinely so important. Then he also very good at actually figuring out where to go for refreshes, like what's a good opportunity to go for a refresh. And this situation right here, they spot a whole team with nothing blocking their back and their top, only a single wall, and he goes ahead and calls this refresh opportunity. So he's very good at spotting those refreshes where they're needed. And as you can see, they're not able to actually get the kill right here, but they are able to get one of the bodies from this, and this is where he fits in really well. He's not always trying to tarp. Instead, right here, MrSavage gets the mats. He's completely fine of letting MrSavage tarp, but this is a really important thing that he does right here. It's just making an extra box. This extra box, guys, is so crucial, just being a little bit more central on zone, as you can see right here, rather than being completely backside. Because if they get a bad moving zone and they're completely backside, trying to heal up, trying to reload their guns, that is going to spell disaster in this end game. It means they're going to get cut off by the team. As soon as zone pops right here, look what he does. Immediately focuses on getting them into a good position. Fully commits all of his materials, getting these guys into a good front side spot. Also changes the angle that the tarp is in, as you can see right here. Not just tarping above this layer right here. Instead, he tarps tank storm front side on the left. So now these guys are towards the dead side of zone. As you can see, there's nobody on this side of zone with them apart from one solo. And now they're in a really good position to look down and get refreshes once again. And this is actually one of my favorite things that he did this whole cup. As soon as they get that kill, he just tarps. He doesn't even reload his gun. He just tarps, claims all this space front side, allows MrSavage to go for that kill using the orb strat that we talked about earlier. Even though it looks like Panza isn't doing an insane amount during this end game, he's only got 1 kill and the other 2 players have got 3 kills each. He is honestly, in my opinion, carrying the majority of this end game. Like, he is doing the heavy lifting in terms of getting these guys into a good spot. However, this is where they make a final mistake, and their last mistake of this tournament, in my opinion. As you can see right here, they're trying to fight and force down this other trio who's playing mid ground. And normally when somebody's playing mid ground, especially like a max tarp like this, they're going to be very stacked on mats. So you need to make sure you don't let them cut your front side, which is what Panza's trying to do. He's trying to make sure they're claiming everything. But for just a second here, these guys stop, and they stop claiming front side, as you can see. And what's going to happen is this other team, Polish team, does very good play right here. They claim front side and they claim that position ahead of zone. And now MrSavage and Mongraal's team are in a really difficult spot right here. Their backside, they're getting cut off. And of course, since it's Veno up on height, he's going to drop down and take them out. And this could have been a guaranteed top 2, but just that small mistake led to them getting top 3 when it was definitely even possibly a winnable scenario if they were able to get a kill on this other team. It's always very important, guys. I'm not just being critical and pointing out mistakes. You are winning cups and you are doing very well, to figure out what mistakes you're making that are preventing you from doing even better.